with the roll call.
Commissioner Burke. Here. Commissioner Dunn.
Here.
Commissioner Hart. Here. Commissioner Gilmetti. Commissioner Gordino. Present. Commissioner Inman. Here. Commissioner Kehoe. Here. Commissioner Medalfer.
Here.
Commissioner Tavaloni. Chair Alvarado.
Yes.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Item 2, welcome to the region. Mr. Dow is Art here. There he is.
Good afternoon, Chair Alvarado's and Commissioners. Again, my name is Art Dow, Executive Director of the Alameda County Transportation Commission. On the behalf of all the partners here in the Bay Area, I would like to welcome you to the beautiful Bay Area, thriving Alameda County, and the can-do city of Oakland. And I just stand here in place of the mayor because I understand that she's out of town. My update to you this afternoon, Commissioner, will focus on projects and project delivery, because we think it is important, Commissioner, aside from trying to impress you this afternoon of what we're doing in Alameda County, to remind ourselves that with the passage of Senate Bill 1, which all of you really worked really hard on, we must now be more focused than ever on project delivery and delivering quickly and most efficiently. So to paraphrase the great Al Davis of the Oakland Raiders, instead of just win, baby, just deliver, baby, and then we all win. So with that, I want to jump into my presentation. Just for folks out of the region and out-of-towners, just a few numbers on Alameda County. We are one of 9 counties in the Bay region. We're the second most populous county within this MPO area, and the 7th most populous county in the state. We are home to nationally recognized major education and research institutions, supporting a very diverse economy of manufacturing, think Tesla, technology, and even viticulture. Yes, we do have a very robust and high-quality winemaking region here in Alameda County with over 60 wineries. We are also home to the Port of Oakland, very important. Port of Oakland is the #1 export port in the United States, and also the 5th largest port by overall volume. 1/3 of all the jobs in the Bay region somehow, some way is connected to the Port of Oakland. And Commissioner, because of where we are in the Bay Area geographically, we see both the blessings and the impacts of transportation. Economically, it is certainly a blessing to have the Port of Oakland here in the county. Almost all the containerized cargo from the entire Northern California passes through our port. And they are passing through our port via trucks and via rails. So we are seeing a tremendous amount of trucks and rail traffic that are competing with, and conflicting with commuter traffic that carry many folks from Contra Costa counties, San Joaquin counties, and places beyond through our county, Alameda County, to places like San Francisco and Santa Clara counties. In addition, much of our mass transit asset in the entire Bay Area, 9-county Bay Area, is in Alameda County. And just think 1 out of 5 mass transit boardings take place at a station or a stop in the county. So because of the large and diverse size and shape of our transportation network and system here in the county and the volume of users and cargo that we carry, we do have lots of transportation improvement needs. So like the other 23 self-help counties in the state, we are addressing some of our transportation needs through a dedicated sales tax program. In our case, we have 3 sales tax programs since 1986. Just on that's the far left bar, that's 1986, the sunset is done, all the project is delivered. The middle bar is a Measure B 2000. We have 5 years to go in that sales tax program. We have delivered over $4 billion worth of programs and projects in the 2000 Measure B program. And for the last bar, the third far right, we are in our 2nd year of the 2014 Measure BB program. Our taxpayer decided to extend and augment our sales tax program in November of 2014, just a few years ago. The Measure BB is anticipated to generate over $8 billion over the next 28 years or so, and we are hopeful, Commissioner, to partner with you moving forward from this point on to leverage our local sales tax dollar with SB1 dollar and other funding sources under your control to deliver many good projects that meet your policy objectives and to relieve congestion, as well as to promote economic development here in Alameda County and the rest of the Bay Area. So in terms of the lesson that we've learned from our own funding process from Measure BB, similar to what you're going through right now with the SB1 Program Commissioner in terms of trying to expedite the programming and allocation process, we also had to struggle with trying to figure out and optimize and structure process to get our sales tax funding out to projects and programs quickly and most responsibly. So we implemented what we call a comprehensive investment planning process, where we strategically and systematically integrated and coordinated all the funding sources that we think that we have control over. And all the various funding accounts within our expenditure plan, you have very similar situation in SB1, into one program and allocation process. We do one single call for project instead of multiple programming events. And what we ask the project sponsor to do is tell us truthfully that what their needs are and make hard commitment to delivery. We, in turn, promise them that we would help them how to get their project funded. So the idea is the project sponsor would spend less time chasing the money and more time on project management and project delivery. This is the first time we ever done this at this scale, and so we don't know how it's going to work, but we're more than happy to report back to you in a year or so. The end result of what we've done is a total of $405 million has been allocated to 47 projects of various phases in our program and created a pipeline of projects to compete for future programming cycles, as well as future regional and state funding opportunities, such as SB1 coming up. So just as a story from a local perspective in terms of program and allocation, Commissioner, that's all we're trying to do here. So I know that, Commissioner, at the moment, we are all struggling with dealing with lots of policy issues regarding programming and allocation of SB1. All the workshop that you're holding, I think that's, we're trying to deal with that. You're trying to deal with, project selection, how much to program and allocate to which type of project and when, and so on and so forth. But we know, Commissioner, at the end of the day, near and dear to your heart is going to be project delivery. So I put this chart up here, Commissioner, here to show you that we here in Alameda County and regions throughout the state know how to deliver. For the Prop 1B, we were very fortunate and grateful to you for having received roughly $850 million in Proposition 1B funds from various accounts, CMIA, TCIF, so on and so forth. And together, the Commission, us, Caltrans, and our partners, we delivered almost $3 billion worth of capital projects out of the $850 million that you gave us out of Prop 1B. So many of these projects, Commissioner, are good projects. They're transformative, such as the BART extension to Warm Spring, which allow for BART to go to San Jose. I think that's transformative. That's not only improve mobility, but also help with regional economic development as well. So thank you for Prop 1B, for SB1. Please help us deliver like we did under the Proposition 1B program. So let's talk about project delivery for a second. Here in Alameda County, I'm very sure that every region is doing the same thing. We do have a multimodal project delivery plan for our first set of projects out of the gate for Measure BB. And they're just shown here graphically. We do have a game plan. The point I'm trying to make here, we do have a game plan for the delivery of many good and worthy projects on every corridor in Alameda County. Again, we have 6 freeway corridor. Every major interstate in the Bay Area is in Alameda County except for I-280. which is on the other side of the bay. And so we are really ready to work with you to accomplish your objectives in infrastructure development, which hopefully will keep the economy going. So for the next few slides, Commissioner, I ask for your patience. We want to showcase a few projects that we have as an example in our project delivery plan. Is organized by project phase to indicate readiness, so environmental, construction, design, and so forth. Now we'll try to move quickly through them. First off, on the I-80 corridor, Interstate 80 corridor through Alameda County is the #1 most congested corridor the entire Bay Area is in our county. So our project delivery plan includes the reconstruction of 2 interchanges. Both of them are in the city of Berkeley, one at Human Avenue and one on Ashby Avenue, which is also Route 13. As you can see, both of these projects, as an example, are funded initially with our sales tax funds. Let me just tell you this is a plug. We will compete for SB1 to making sure that it's going to get completed. These are both needed interchange modernization project and for safety improvement as well. This is a project that I'm very excited about, and still we're wrapping up the environmental phase for this one. Our commission, Alameda CTC Commission, have planned to invest another $500 million to improve the transportation infrastructure at the Port of Oakland, to optimize the movements of goods on rail, to reduce conflicts between trucks and rail traffics, with the overarching goal of improving efficiency of the port and making sure that the port will remain globally competitive and will be the choice port of call for shippers that are out at seas. I think this is going to move the needle from a goods movement perspective, not only for Alameda County, for the entire Northern California, and indeed for the entire state. Another project in the environmental phase is on the Nimitz, on IA-80. We have planned to reconstruct the freeway access in the area of the Broadway-Jackson Interchange project and also near Interstate 980. This area has been a frequent bottleneck and hampering access to really tremendous redevelopment potential and opportunities at the old Naval Air Station in the city of Alameda, and also the area around Langley College and Chinatown and Oakland. I'm hearing rumors that the Oakland A's may locate their park around here somewhere. So that would be a big win for the city of Oakland if it ever happened. So for the bike enthusiasts out there, aside from planning, delivering freeway interchange modernization project, Commissioner, we're actually working on the delivery of a major bicycle boulevard project, which we call East Bay, the East Bay Inc Greenway. It will be a transformative 16-mile urban bike and ped corridor connecting 7 BART stations, schools, community centers, and underserved communities. So this is a game changer as far as bicycle and pedestrian is concerned for our county. So I'm very excited about this. Most of this funding for the project is included in our current sales tax program. In the eastern part of our county, in Alameda County, which is, Commissioner, becoming more urbanized. They are suburban in nature at the moment. We are starting the design of the widening of the last segment of Route 84, which is that little wiggle to your right there. We're going to widen the last segment of Interstate 680 in our county and make that an express lane corridor, as well as reconstructing the 680 and 84 interchange. The 680, 84 interchange alone is about $220 million. We are assessing the cost of the rest of the 680 north of 84. So those are the projects in the pipeline in environmental design. I'm going to give you an update on project that we have in construction. We're very busy out in the field with a lot of boots on the ground and equipment moving everywhere in Alameda County. Also in the eastern part of the Alameda County, Commissioner, we are finishing up the construction of the Route 84 Expressway. And we'll start construction of the northbound express lane on I-680 this fall. By the way, Commissioner, our ability to get the northbound I-680 express lane to construction is due largely on your your action a couple of months ago on right-of-way and allocation. It's a $220 million project. Okay, and you acted in June and July for allocation and right-of-way. We're actually advertising this baby in October, open bid on October 2nd. So that's very exciting. And on 580 Commissioner, I just wanted to report to you that the 14 miles of express lane are open and operational for a year and a half now. That's the orange part up there. And they're making a big difference in congestion relief in this significant interregional route and goods movement corridor. Also in construction, Commissioner, is a project on the Nimitz in Oakland, IA-80. It's a reconstruction of the interchange at 23rd and 29th Street. And again, this project would not have happened without funding from Proposition 1B TCIF program. And again, thank you for that. And once we're done, you will see a substantial truck traffic improvement, safety improvement at this location. And so our county is half urbanized, and of course, every major urbanized area got to have a major bus rapid transit project, and we have one of those here in Alameda County. So currently, we started the construction on a $200 million project to provide a partial dedicated running way BRT to move people more rapidly from northern part of our county, Emeryville, all the way down to San Leandro. And by the way, this project would be the first of its kind in Northern California. So we're doing a lot of large-scale, major infrastructure, concrete and steel projects. We're also actually implementing a couple of very neat, very significant, very critical human-scale type program as well. So we actually have rolled out an affordable student transit pass pilot program to see if we could get low-income kids and give them an affordable means to get to school safely. We are also expanding our Safe Route to School program into 180 schools in Alameda County. We started with 10 years ago, as well as strengthening and investing in our paratransit programs, since we are expecting that 1 out of 5 residents of Alameda County would be of age 64 and over in a few short years. So we're trying to move our seniors, start to get investing in moving our senior more effectively. So lastly, Commissioner, I'm so sorry for the long presentation, but I think it's important for you to see that because of your leadership, your hard work and dedication through the years, that lots of things are getting done at the regional and local level. Your struggle with important transportation policy issues actually do make a difference here on the ground. And your objectives are being achieved on the ground by agencies like ours throughout the state. So I want to say thank you for all you do. And again, welcome to the Bay Area.
Thank you. Any questions for Art?
Yes. Thank you so much for your presentation, very comprehensive. A couple of us were talking earlier today about our regional transportation authorities, CTC Alameda. What outreach are you doing to the business groups in Alameda County so that they're fully apprised and partnering with you on understanding where SB1 potential is? Question one. Question two, a lot of us are also looking at sales tax revenue on our voter-approved measures declining. And are you seeing that in Alameda County as well? But first question is the outreach to your other business groups.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner. In terms of business outreach, we are a member of every single Chamber of Commerce in this county. That's number one. Number two, I sit on, and we also join regional economic development organizations such as the East Bay Economic Development Alliance, that's by 2 counties, Contra Costa County and Alameda County, which are represented by not only businesses, but policymakers as well. Aside from the normal tweeting and social media, we have e-newsletter that we crank out every month. But our participation with the chambers and businesses is very active, especially with the Port of Oakland. We have the whole logistic group that we participate in quarterly. So I want to make sure that you know that. And tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to be up here on TV in the Tri-Valley to let the Tri-Valley people know where the sales tax dollar is going. So I think that's things that we do continually so that folks understand that we're actually good government, we're delivering agency, and they know where the benefits are going. So that's number one. So that's just a short answer. We're doing a lot more. We go to all these street fairs and all these events.
And now we have SB1 to share with them as well.
Absolutely,
Right.
and that we're going to ramp up on that
Great.
moving
That's what I'm
forward in the
looking for.
future. And we do have a strategic communication plan whereby we're going to begin to partner up to making sure the voters understand it's not only Alameda County. We don't do this alone. We do this with a lot of help from you all, from the state, and from the region. So we are actually ramping up on that end,
Thank you.
Commissioner. In terms of sales tax program, it's both a science and an art, and that's no pun intended there. But in terms of sales tax, factually, for major BB specifically, we are actually seeing higher revenue, actual revenue received than actually projected. Because we were very conservative when we went to the voters. Back in 2011, remember, we failed in 2012. So we did a little bit of tweaking, but we were very conservative with our numbers. So that's, I hope that answered your question.
Further questions? Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, move to item 3. It's a resolution of necessity. Stephen?
Yes, Commissioners. Under eminent domain law, a property owner whose property is under condemnation consideration has the right to appear before the Commission to question 3 and only 3 issues. 1, does public interest and necessity require the project? 2, is the project planned and located in a manner that will be most compatible with the greatest public good and least private injury? 3, is the property necessary for the project? The Commission neither determines the amount of compensation for the property rights to be acquired, nor deals with any other issue than the 3 just stated. Government Code Section 7267.2 requires Caltrans to make an offer to purchase the property rights needed. Caltrans has made the required offer. Code of Civil Procedure Section 1245.240 specifies 8 affirmative votes for Commission approval of a resolution of necessity. The Commission scheduled this condemnation appearance at the request of Attorney Mona Nimitz, representing property owner Dar family. The Dar family controls 3 distinct properties that are impacted by the $192.6 million State Route 58 Kramer Junction projects through 2 separate corporate entities. The Kramer Apartments Corporation controls 2 parcels. Parcel number 1 is called the Motel Parcel, is 3.08 acres, and Caltrans needs 0.13 acres in fee. Parcel number 2, called the Antique Shop Parcel, is 0.75 acres in size, and Caltrans needs 0.04 acres in fee and 0.05 acres in temporary construction easement. The Kramer Services Corporation controls a 16.9 acre parcel where Caltrans needs 6.7 acres in fee, 0.41 acres in temporary construction easement, and 0.09 acres in utility easement, and will leave the parcel in after condition with an approximately 1 acre northern remainder and a 9.2 acre southern remainder. Mark Whiteside, the department's Assistant Chief Engineer, is ready to make the department's presentation, to be followed by the property owner or his representative. Mike, it's all yours.
Thank you, Stephen, and good afternoon, Commissioners. Can you see me okay behind this podium? Again, I'm Mike Whiteside, the Assistant Chief Engineer, and I'm here to present on these 3 RONs required for improvements to State Route 58 in District 8, San Bernardino County. The first parcel is owned by the Kramer Services Corporation. The 2 other parcels are owned by the Kramer Apartments Corporation. These corporations are controlled by Donald, James, and Dennis Dar. Here you see the location of the project in rural San Bernardino County. Here, State Route 58 is a major east-west corridor connecting I-5 and State Route 99 with Interstates 15 and 40. It's a route of statewide significance, especially for freight traffic. The volumes of traffic are expected to double in the next 25 years and currently carry up to 60% truck traffic. It's also a designated route for oversized vehicles. And here you see the existing Route 58 is a two-lane conventional highway. It closely parallels the BNSF railroad tracks. The proposed project will reroute Route 58 and change it into a four-lane expressway, removing the last stoplight between Bakersfield and Barstow. It'll also grade separate with the BNSF railroad. The project provides route continuity, increases capacity, reduces congestion, and improves safety. We'll also be doing some minor improvements to Route 395 in the project area, some widening and providing access control. Limitations in the area include the Edwards Air Force Base and the BNSF railroad tracks. During the project delivery process or development process, Edwards Air Force Base indicated that they preferred this alignment alternative. At a public hearing in 2013, both James and Dennis Starr submitted in writing that they supported this alignment as well. The subject parcels are right at the juncture of 395 and 58. So again, there are three parcels. I'm going to walk through them in order. The first, here you see the proposed project. First is owned by the Kramer Apartments Corporation, about 3 acres, the motel parcel. There is a motel on this parcel. The project does not impact the motel structures. The second parcel is also owned by the Apartments Corporation. It's about 3/4 of an acre. There is an antique store operating on the site. Again, the project does not impact the actual structures of the antique business. And the third parcel is owned by the Services Corporation. It's almost 17 acres. The project will require removal of planes, hangars, trailers, equipment, and miscellaneous items stored on this site. So again, I'm going to walk through one by one, the motel parcel, followed by the antique parcel, and then the services parcel. The services parcel does wrap around the antique parcel on 3 sides, and our project will actually divide the services parcel into 2. The northern remainder of about 1 acre and the southern remainder of 9.2 acres. Before I launch into each of these parcels, I'd like to say we have had an unprecedented amount of contact with these property owners, starting with public hearings in 2013. I'd like to highlight the 26 personal meetings we've had, and that was only regarding appraisals, acquisitions, and relocations. This does not include extensive meetings with the design team, where we attempted to minimize impacts and to accommodate the owner's concerns and requests. We've made many changes to the project to either minimize the take or to make the project more acceptable to the property owners. So first, we'll go through the motel parcel. Here you see a street view of the motel parcel, and the parcel is highlighted now in green. I have to apologize, this perspective isn't very good, but the parcel extends back quite a ways. And we are seeking 0.13 acres in fee at this location. Currently, the property owners have not expressed any specific objections to this acquisition, except perhaps for compensation. So with that, I'm going to move on to the antique parcel. Here you see a street view of the antique parcel. It's the 2 buildings in the foreground there with kind of the white roof, I believe. And I'd like to point out that currently off of 395, you can just roll right up to the front door and park. And here you see in green now the parcel as well as the existing right-of-way line. We're seeking to acquire about a 12-foot strip along the frontage to widen 395 to 4 lanes and to provide access control. Again, we are not impacting the 2 buildings in the foreground there that are the antiques business. And we're seeking, of course, 4/100 of an acre in fee, 5/100 in a temporary construction easement. I'd like to take a moment to point out that in our original designs, we had a driveway exclusive for this business. At the request of the property owners, we relocated that driveway. And you can just see a corner of it on the left side of your screen, left side of the picture where the lines, the blue and the orange lines turn in. That is a driveway that was relocated from the antique parcel to the south at the owner's request. So related to the findings of the commission, that the project is planned and located in a manner most compatible with the greatest public good and least private injury, the property owner contends three things: that the property lines are drawn incorrectly, that their buildings do not traverse the property lines, that the parking will not be to code in the final condition, and that a northern driveway has a raised median, which will cause access concerns for commercial and oversized vehicles. So addressing these one at a time, we have consulted with the County of San Bernardino, and we've had our right-of-way engineering and surveys units check and double-check and triple-check, and indeed, the buildings do traverse the property lines. Regarding the setback, in the final condition, there will be 63 feet setback from the property line. We've checked and double-checked with San Bernardino County, and that is more than enough room for fire access, parking, and handicapped accessibility. So you'll see now in pink the northern driveway. That is indeed a right turn in and right turn out only because of a raised curbed median in the middle of 395. So traffic traveling south on 395 can turn in, and you can turn out onto south 395. But you can't access this driveway from the northern direction. We had to put that raised curb median in for safety and operational purposes due to the location of the signalized intersection to the south. However, I'd like to point out that the southern driveway, which we placed at the request of the property owners, provides full access to all directions in and out. We have also run all our truck turning templates and such, and trucks and oversized loads can indeed access both the northern driveway and the southern driveway. So we have provided full accessibility in all directions to these parcels. So regarding the property lines, again, we've confirmed the buildings do traverse the property lines, but I'd like to point out that the acquisition isn't impacted by these buildings. Our acquisition doesn't touch these buildings, so there's no influence. About the parking not being to code in the after condition, San Bernardino County requires 51 feet setback. We are providing 63 foot in the final condition. And regarding the northern driveway, raised median preventing access, the median is required. It's a safety issue. We are providing the signalized southern driveway, and we've confirmed trucks can enter and exit without a problem. So that's the antique parcel, and I'd like to pause for a moment and ask if the commission has any questions about either the motel parcel or the antiques parcel before I continue on to the third. Thank you. So the third parcel is a services parcel, again, about 17 acres. We're seeking to acquire 6.7 acres in fee, 4/10 in a temporary construction easement, and 9/100 in a utility easement. And again, the yellow fee acquisition area here divides the parcel into two parts, a northern remainder of about an acre, and a southern parcel of 9.2 acres. Before I go on too far, I'd like to point out that that services parcel has significant encumbrances. I have here the easements with Southern California Edison signed in 1958 that provide Southern California Edison significant rights in this area. Edison has two easements. The first parallels 395, and the second comes in from the east and turns south. And these are for power distribution and transmission. And you'll see that in the pictures shortly. So Edison's rights include ingress and egress, the right to operate, maintain, improve, enlarge, repair, or replace their facilities within the easement, and they can locate and choose any of their equipment wherever they'd like within that easement. So they can place their poles, guy wires, and it's all open to them. I'd like to point out, too, that the area must be kept clear from buildings, equipment, and other interferences. There is a third easement across this property, a company called Next Era. Let me go to that. Next Era, shown here in orange, and that is another utility coming in from the east and turning south. Notice they do go through our acquisition area, shown in yellow, so we're keeping them in our right-of-way there. And their southern leg that goes south, that is actually on Air Force property. So here is a street view at the southern end of that services parcel. You'll notice the canopy there, the truck canopy, that will be removed. If you see the bumped-in area in the middle, the yellow or bumps in right about the center of that picture, that is the location of the southern driveway with a signalized intersection. And here you see about the middle of that property. We'll be removing a lot of the hangars, equipment, and many things that are stored on the site. You can see in the middle there are significant transmission towers, though, within the right-of-way. And here you see our acquisition and temporary construction easement. The driveway in the center there is that northern driveway I spoke of earlier. And here we are at the very north end. Now we're looking south. I think this view really shows the forest of utilities that are out there on this site. And again, we're seeking in this area, we're just seeking a fee acquisition. So related to the finding that the project is planned and located in a manner most compatible with greatest public good and least private injury, the property owner contends that replacement private utilities are not designed correctly. So I'll take a moment and explain. There are two privately owned water lines and a sewer line that are on this property. They cross under what will be the future freeway. So we have to relocate them and protect them in place. And we are doing so. We provided a design on June 23rd when we met and provided the sizes and agreed on steel casings for the 2 water and 1 sewer line, and we are actually providing a future utility casing so they can add utilities later, and those are, again, to go underneath the new Route 58. We consider this issue resolved. Related to the same finding, the property owner contends that we must allow U-turns at Salton Road. There are no U-turn restrictions at Salton Road. Related to the same finding, the property owner contends on the northern remainder that one of the Southern California Edison poles that is in the middle of that northern remainder should be moved south to Caltrans right-of-way. The department's response is that Southern California Edison has designed their relocation. The department does not do that. Edison is acting within their existing easement and within the rights of their existing easement. We did ask them to relocate that pole if they could relocate the pole to Caltrans right-of-way, and they refused to do so on the basis that their line spans are limited and they have to be balanced. In addition, they had great safety concerns about exposing their inspection and maintenance crews to being that close to traffic. And finally, they were concerned with access. They would have to ask permission to access their facilities if they were located within our right-of-way. They would have to seek Caltrans permission anytime they wanted to inspect or maintain. But Edison did relocate the 1 pole of concern as far south as they could to minimize the impact to that northern parcel. Any limitations on that parcel due to the placement of that pole, we now consider a compensation issue. Related to the same finding, the property owner contends on the northern parcel that we should replace some of the Southern California Edison poles with tubular steel poles that don't have guy wires. We should shorten guy wires, and they requested a meeting with Edison. The department's response is, again, Edison designs their facilities. We do not do so. Edison is acting within their existing easement and within the rights of that existing easement. We asked Edison to replace the pole that they speak of, to pull it out and put one in, a tubular steel pole that doesn't have guy wires, and Edison told us that is not feasible. We have had many meetings with Edison. We have redesigned. We will be happy to attend any meetings with the property owners and Edison, and if there are impacts to the parcel due to the guy wires, that is now a compensation issue. Related to the same finding, the property owner contends Caltrans is seeking new rights. The existing easements do not have provisions for underground utilities, and that the terms of the underground easements are not reasonable and should be negotiated. The department's response is, yes, we are seeking new underground easements. That is an SEC or an Edison requirement, and they issued their easement language. We do not control that. We have not heard any specific objections to the easement language proposed. And at this point, if there are impacts to the parcel due to this underground easement, that is a compensation issue. Related to the finding that a valid offer of just compensation has been made, the property owner contends that a valid offer has not been made because we didn't consider a private airstrip, and a next era easement is extinguished. I did not show you that one, but apparently there was another easement in the area. The department's response is, written offers were made originally in March of 2016. They were revised in January of 2017. There are many easements and encumbrances out there on this project, and they were considered along with the airstrip when we issued our valuation. District and headquarters right-of-way have reviewed the offers, and they are just offers in accordance with Government Code 7267.2. And finally, in summary, the public interest and necessity require the proposed project. The project is planned and located in a manner most compatible with greatest public good and least private injury. The property sought to be condemned is necessary for the project, and an offer of compensation has been made. In closing, I'll say that my door and Director Belinsky's door is always open. We will continue to negotiate, but it is time to move this very important project. It's important to the people of California, to our economy, and especially to movement of goods and services. We ask that you approve this resolution of necessity, and Director Belinsky and I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Questions before we hear speakers? None? Dennis Dar, to be followed by Don Dar.
Yes. On the issue of the transmission towers on our property, Caltrans said no poles or towers can be taken in the take area, no exceptions. We negotiated with Edison and came to an agreement to move the towers closer to the right-of-way fence. Later, a map came out and showed that this was not true. They let NextEra leave their 6 poles in the right-of-way area due to costs. They could leave the 2 poles that I am addressing at no cost to Caltrans or SCE. I feel Caltrans was untruthful with us and forced us into a compromise. Caltrans could leave the towers or poles in the right-of-way as they accommodated NextEra. We had a level 2 meeting with Caltrans on June 14th, 2017. I explained to the committee that Caltrans says there is a tensioning problem, and Edison said that is not the case. Mark Zombik, the chair of the meeting, stated that the design team should set up a meeting with Caltrans, SCE, and us at the site. We would resolve the he said, she said issue. As of now, no meeting has been set up. I believe this meeting was deliberately overlooked because it would end in my favor. The south pole on our property is the most important, and that if moved, it would not interfere with the ingress and egress on our property or driveway. The fellow that was just up here talking said that we couldn't park or do anything under that easement. Well, we've got it in writing where we can store stuff, park stuff, drive under it. Only thing we can't do is store inflammable materials. And also in that easement is they have the right to put towers on there anywhere they want, but there's a clause in there, and it says it's not to unduly burden the property owner. Well, the poles do burden our property, and if it's no expense to move it in. Now, if Edison comes out with Caltrans and says there's a tensioning problem, we can't do this, then I'm okay with it. But when I talked to Edison, which his name is Chad, and we've gotten where we're friendly, he said there's no reason why these poles can't stay in the right-of-way. And so that's where I'd like to have that meeting. I want it settled. And then on the other issue that I have is Caltrans is to get a distribution underground easement from us for Edison. We have told Caltrans we need to talk to Edison on the language of that easement. We've always, when Edison needed an easement before, they came out, they talked to us, we said what we need for that land, our uses, and we worked around it and we worked through it. But the way it is now with Caltrans's easement, it's just a standard run-of-the-mill easement, and it's all Edison's favor. But we've always been able to talk with Edison and negotiate a applicable easement there. Okay, that has not been done yet. We need this. We need this meeting. We know there will be an easement granted. We know that's going to happen, but we want to get the best wording for us on our easement, and I don't know what else. That's the end. Let's see. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Don, Dar?
I'd like my brother to go first.
So this must be James.
Yeah, I'm James. We're the ones that aren't wearing any ties. My name is James Dar. At 73, I'm the oldest of the 4 brothers. All of us have lived our entire lives at Kramer Junction, or very close by, Boron. Change is difficult after such a long time, and at the same place and at the same routine. However, we realize progress must move on. We have supported the 58 realignment, and we wrote comments in favor of it, just like the gentleman said. We appreciate that Caltrans worked with us on signalizing that intersection to give us the best ingress and egress at that particular intersection. The design in general works. There are some significant details that there are some difficulties that can easily be worked out, but there are some, and of course our attorney will address those. I wish to point out some errors in the appraisal. Upon our first meeting in January of 2015, the appraiser Joy Grandfloor, her attitude was somewhat demanding. It wasn't impolite or anything, but she was real adamant about our requirement to relocate the private utilities that were brought up earlier. And she clearly stated that it was our responsibility. She thoroughly believed this. We had to show her the book that Caltrans put out. We printed up a book that said that Caltrans had to compensate or at least address it. This was cleared up, and this was later cleared up, but we felt that she didn't really understand her job, that she wasn't really very knowledgeable about that. And we wrote a letter to the state, and we expressed our concerns. She completely ignored the fact on not just one meeting, but several meetings, that we designed and built a solar structure on this parcel for the purpose of providing solar power to the caretaker's home that you're going to be removing, sheds and hangars. There's lights, there's security cameras, there's compressors, lathes, mills, and drills, and et cetera, that solar powers. As a result, there was no allowance ever provided for solar on our parcel. She erred on the next era easement. It's been cleared up. But if it wasn't for this hearing, I don't believe it would have been cleared up.
Hang on just one second. Stephen, excuse me, what?
Not really appropriate for you to be addressing issues of compensation and appraisals in this venue. That needs to be addressed in a court of law. The commission does not have any jurisdiction over appraisals.
Did I do that?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Mona Nimitz.
You must be
Mona Nimitz, yes, and I'm counsel for the DARs, the property owners. And just to address what was said, That's actually not a compensation issue. It goes to the heart of whether a valid government code offer was made. I will address some additional points in a moment, but I'd like Mr. Dar to continue, if that's all right with the commissioners.
Okay, let's get back to James.
Thank you.
Then we'll go to Don, and then you can speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those errors sort of lead up to the big problem, and that is that Joy and the state of California refusal to address the use and access of that airstrip that we have enjoyed and we have documented since 1963. I believe in your packet you have a letter from the county stating that my dad got permission to have an airstrip there. 11 members of my immediate family, when I say immediate, it's down to my cousins, have all learned to fly there, have licenses to fly there, and we continually use this airstrip. In preparation to this hearing, we viewed some hearings in order to better understand the procedure. There was one lady who spoke for her family in a very similar situation. In her opening statement, she mentions her first encounter with a state's agent. I don't know who it is. She said the state's agent told her that if her family did not sign, they would be sorry. I looked for a reaction from the board, and I didn't see any. And I understand that just is just a statement and probably couldn't be proved. And I'm sure that you've heard other similar stories and statements like that. Well, last Monday, August 7th, at 1:30 p.m., we also had a visitor of sorts from the county of San Bernardino. That's what the county we were in there. And he was with code enforcement. He came to our antique store, which is also an office in the back, with a piece of paper stating he was investigating a code violation for Caltrans concerning our antique store. This very store is a big part of our settlement. My counter girl Jennifer and Secretary Diane called me to the front. I knew he was there, but I was watching the video, I said, of this hearing. Caltrans, he said that we are in violation of this use. Caltrans filed the complaint, and for some reason he asked twice if we did a traffic study. I don't know why he asked that, but maybe to justify his existence there, I don't know. My cool-headed Secretary Diane asked if she could copy the complaint, and he was told no by the agent Mark Bloomer. He said we had to ask for a public information request. Needless to say, I was very upset and angry, and I said, how coincidental that we are negotiating with Caltrans, and you show up to launch a complaint after 50 years of us having that building and a retail store there. This is intimidation, pure and simple. I believe you do not condone such actions. I believe you have the authority to correct and act on such behavior. In order for you to act, you need some proof. We have 4 witnesses, 1 video security camera, and accurate notes. The County of San Bernardino's code enforcement must have records and logs of their personnel. And that definitely proves that that appointment was made. And I'd like to know what I can do to see this through. Now, I don't believe any individual or agency will be held accountable. However, I'll have to make some trips to Hesperia, which is over an hour away, and stand in line in order to produce records and documents to support my case, and I have them. I find it very suspicious that any government employee would produce a paper or document on a counter and yet deny us the right to examine it. End of speech.
Thank you. Don.
I listened to my 2 brothers, and I sat there and think, I wonder if they're just disgruntled people or what. And I would imagine you board members are doing that too. Our family has been at Kramer Junction. My dad retired from the Air Force at Edwards Air Force Base. Me and my brothers both flew over to Vietnam together to serve our country as pilots. We both were over there, got a lot of air medals, 2 Bronze Stars, and Distinguished Flying Cross, which is probably the top 10. Our younger brother, Kurt, went to West Point, is retired colonel as ROTC in Oakland. His daughter, one daughter is at West Point right now. The other daughter is graduating from Yale and going to the Air Force to fly. What I'm trying to say is our community service should not be in doubt. And what we're trying to say here is I do believe that these issues, this freeway, that's everything that Caltrans is contending, needs to be there, and we want it to be there. We feel it should be there, but we also feel that with a few honest efforts by Caltrans to make the design useful for us and acceptable for us could be done. They will not talk to us with earnest. They will not put in writing what they say at meetings, all those meetings. I believe my attorney will come through, and she's very, very knowledgeable, as she'll understand, and she'll see the problems. We do not want to fight with Caltrans. We want them to work with us, sit down, and redesign what needs to be designed. We want to be able to go underneath that underground easement with our water lines if we need to. Edison will give us that if it's in writing. If it's not in writing, it will not happen. That's about all I got to say. They've kind of covered it, and I think my attorney will help us. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Matt?
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and thank you for your time. My name is Mona Nimitz, and I'm counsel for the property owners. Before I get into my prepared statement, I do want to address a couple of things Mr. Whiteside said. We don't want this resolution going forward today. We've asked that it be delayed. We're asking today again that it be delayed. I flew up here. They came up yesterday. We're all here to say, can you please continue this hearing and give us some time and give Caltrans some direction to work with us? As all 3 Dar brothers indicated, they are in support of this project. But it is not currently designed with the least private injury in mind. And that is our big beef. The second one is that a valid offer has not been made. Okay, so real quickly, it is with great disappointment that I stand before you for the reasons I just indicated. But before going into the litany of issues, I just want you to understand who I am and where I'm coming from and why perhaps what I say should be given some weight. I was an eminent domain partner at the largest law firm in California doing public agency acquisitions. I've represented all forms of public agency throughout the public entity acquisition process. The last 5 years before I left my former firm, I worked hand in hand with local transportation commissions, very much like the gentleman that spoke earlier, including with RCTC on the 91 CIP project, which, as you all know, is a design-build project with intricacies like you can't even imagine, especially right-of-way acquisition problems, issues. We took several parcels to resolution, but we were able to work through quite a few of them too. I've worked on numerous offline projects involving highways such as the I-10 corridor. I've worked closely with Sandbag and RCTC, bound by Caltrans policies and procedures manual, and have been agency counsel on numerous condemnation review panels. I've facilitated hundreds of public acquisitions and have sat at the diocese with numerous boards and city council meetings when resolution of necessities were being considered. In my prior capacity as agency counsel, I have also worked very closely with District 8 and with Rebecca Giardo, the Deputy District Director of Right-of-Way, as well as Mr. Rizzi, who's the in Right-of-Way Acquisition District 8. And again, I don't lay this background out as a form of gloating or patting myself in the back. Instead, it is my hope that you understand that when I stand before you and tell you that the process leading up to today, there was just faulty and the resolution will not stand up to a challenge in court. You should also know, in the over a decade of doing this, I have represented property owners in less than a handful of times. That is how big a believer I am in agency work and how agencies go about doing things. But this one, it just blows my mind. The requirements to adopt a valid resolution have not been met. In your packet, under tab 3, attachment E, you have a letter from myself dated February 13th, 2017. In it, I tried back in February to give you a sense of what's been going on. Unfortunately, since that time, the basic problems I laid out then continue to exist today. You should also know, time and again, the owners have offered to enter into a possession and use agreement. And if their design concerns could be alleviated, and if adequate relocation was offered. We've offered this because I understand there's certification issues involved, there's funding involved. The owners have offered to enter into an early mediation, and those offers have been rebuffed. The owners, at their own expense, have actually retained an appraiser, an engineer, a relocation consultant, as well as an airport expert. We've done all our legwork already. We want to sit down and have a conversation, a meaningful conversation, and that's just not happening. I know that you know that the owners, the owners have even suggested exchanging their right to raise a goodwill claim if they're offered adequate relocation. They will waive it. We stand here before you today saying, we will waive goodwill if we're offered adequate relocation. I understand I'm going off on a tangent, but I'm also laying the history of the interactions we've had, or the lack thereof. I know Mr. Whiteside had indicated there was untold interactions, which, by the way, are different than what are in your panel review reports. Your panel review reports indicated significantly fewer contacts than what was on that PowerPoint. One or more of the brothers touched on another issue. On one of two additional issues you should be aware of. On August 1st, so just over 2 weeks ago, the owners were told for the very first time that utilities on their property close to the intersection of 395 and 58 needed to be relocated. The first time. This means there's no valuation for the rights that may need to be acquired for those relocations in the offer. This is an absolutely new design issue that came up after the second level review. Also on August 7th, the owners received, as I think James indicated, received a surprise visit from county code enforcement. They were told that Caltrans had lodged a complaint about the use of the building located on the antique store parcel, which is your parcel number C21557. If you turn to attachment C, page 3 of your panel packet, the owners raised 3 contentions as to that parcel. First, the owners asserted that Caltrans right-of-way maps are incorrect and they show that the property lines are cutting through the buildings. Although there are self-serving statements in the report that indicate that the property lines are correct as they were verified by the department's right-of-way staff, that is inaccurate. The same people who drew the lines are now saying that they are right. That's not only very convincing, but it fails to account for the fact that the county would not have approved a structure that bisects multiple properties such in this situation. The next owner contention regarding this parcel apparently struck a nerve. The owners asserted that the property will be left in a non-conforming use in the after condition because unless the building is demolished, the owners will not be able to meet parking and setback requirements for the county. The backside of the property is not available because it has been leased out for some time and there's no dispute as to that issue, just so you know. Rather than fairly assessing this contention, Caltrans filed a complaint with the county and sidestepped the issue before this commission. There may be 63 feet from the building to the proposed right-of-way line in the after condition, but what's glaringly missing from the statement is the fact that almost a 15-foot strip along the frontage of the building is unusable for parking. When that fact is considered and given the layout of the parcel, it is in fact left non-conforming in the after condition. Rather than owning that and offering consequential displacement, Caltrans filed a code violation complaint with the county just over a week ago, likely in anticipation of this hearing. The owners have seller's permits attached to that property that have been issued by the state, and they have building permits and amendments there too. But now this is one more unnecessary battle that they have to take on. As I said earlier, this acquisition's already cost them tens of thousands of dollars. You should also know that about a month ago, on July 12th, I was contacted by staff and told that the owners had two choices regarding this parcel. Either they could waive the issue of the parcel being landlocked in the after condition, or staff would pull the resolution you have before you today, revert back to the original design that took away the signalized intersection that we'd all worked so hard to achieve, and then go to resolution in October. The owners were given less than 24 hours to make a decision. They have, in fact, waived the landlock issue, just so you know. We're not raising that as a design issue, but I want you to be aware of what was done. The panel parcel reports identified in attachments B, C, and D likely lead you to believe that the owner's design concerns have been met, that relocation services have been provided, and the only issue that remains pertains to compensation. That's not so. This is just one more example of a host of actions taken to avoid the real issues here and to deal fairly with the owners. And I don't say that lightly. I don't like being up here, and I don't want to be up here. We've discussed attachment C already. I'd like you to walk you through some issues with attachment B. On page 4, and this has to do with the larger, longer parcel now. On page 4, the first contention is regarding the raised median. Contrary to what Mr. White said, and I think he may have just inadvertently misspoken, there is no raised median in the driveway, and we've never contended that there is one or that's a problem. It's our understanding there is no raised median in the driveway. It's on Highway 395. Okay. The owners were actually told about the median, told that the median would be painted, not raised. Then, relatively recently, they were told that it would be a raised median. Certainly, the appraisal doesn't consider a raised median, and if it does, then perhaps the owner should have been made aware of this fact in what I have as 7+ meetings, because that's what the panel report says, but apparently there were, I think, 30-some contacts, according to the presentation today. Caltrans indicated that the department has also confirmed through modeling with truck turning templates that commercial oversized trucks traveling southbound on 395 can safely enter into the property. While that statement sounds nice, it is inaccurate and misses the point. The northerly driveway does not allow sufficient space for a truck heading south to turn in simultaneously while a truck on the property is trying to leave the property. Keeping in mind, because of the raised median, the truck leaving the property must make a right-handed U-turn to even get out in the first instance. So it is not adequate access to begin with. Had there been no raised median and instead there was a painted median, that would give the truck heading south a little bit more room to veer to their left a little bit and make a sharper turn inside onto the property.
We'll need to start wrapping this up. You need
Okay.
to go through your list. You seem to be jumping around.
Well, I'm going through the panel report, actually. In
Let's
response to the...
Move it forward.
Okay. The first issue listed on page 5 of the panel report is a non-answer. Caltrans basically disavowed itself of any responsibility of the SCE easements and says, contrary to what was said to you today, the panel report actually says any future meetings to negotiate the terms of the easement languages between the property owner and the SCE. I question how the appraiser knew what rights to appraise with respect to that easement if it's less than a full fee acquisition, if they don't know what rights are being acquired because the language hasn't been decided upon. But more importantly, I also don't understand how Caltrans can just totally disavow itself of those easements when it asserts on page 3 that this is the second to the last paragraph, that the subject property is also needed for public utility relocations that are a direct result of the proposed project. With respect to the location of utility poles, likewise, it is a non-answer. I urge the commissioners to read the panel report critically. It does not address the contention. There is no indication why the SCE poles cannot also fall within a Caltrans exception. The same thing is true for the next contention about the TSPs. It's a design issue. The blanket nondescript statement about interference is not sufficient to allow the property owners to adequately assess the impacts or the reasons for those impacts. In response to the second contention on page 6 of the attachment B, that is also misleading. The owners contend to this day that adequate relocation has not been provided. The department generically asserts that it has. It has not. Only 2 potentially comparable property sites were provided to the owners. 2. In the entire time they've dealt with Caltrans, only 2. 1 was in fact not comparable because of the uses that they need were not allowed on that property. And 2, the second one could not even be verified. This is a massive acquisition, yet relocation hasn't been offered. In fact, the appraisers, the F&E appraisers were just out there last month appraising everything. They don't even have any actual relocation offer on the table at the moment. This brings me to the final issue, which is the elephant in the room. You will note that the panel report out for each of the parcels, the last owner contention is that the offer for just compensation does not comply with the requirements of Government Code 7267.2. You have before you proof attached to my February letter that there exists a valid airstrip that will become unusable in the after condition. You saw that. The property is bisected by the freeway. The strip is on the northern part of the 0.97 acres. Caltrans also has materials making it clear that the county approved the airstrip in the 1960s. They also have materials making it clear that Edwards Air Force Base has allowed the owners to use a second airstrip on the Edwards Airport property. None of this was actually considered in the appraisal. It's not a compensation issue because the government code requires an appraisal of the property interests being acquired, and property interests being acquired were actually missed.
Ms. Nimitz, you need to wrap this up.
Okay. Getting back to why we're here today, we are urging the commission to consider postponing this meeting, or I'm sorry, the adoption of the resolutions today, and asking Caltrans to meet with us, sit across the table from us, and have a conversation, a meaningful conversation with us about the design issues that remain. We believe, we all stand here before you today indicating that we think they can be resolved, but we need them to come to the table and sit across from us and be prepared to talk substance, not just form. It felt like everything was about, well, we can't have design concerns, we can't have design concerns, we can't have design concerns. But they're not willing to sit down with us and actually have a conversation about the acquisition, the entirety of the acquisition. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll listen to the department's response, and then we'll take questions.
Well, that was quite an interesting read or listen. A couple of things. Next Era has agreed to be in our right-of-way. Southern California Edison stated in writing they do not want to be. If Southern California Edison was agreeable, we would have considered an exception and probably allowed them in. Next Era hasn't requested that. And in fact, to reroute the Next Era power lines would require between 8 and 13 additional acres of property that we'd have to get easements on, and as well as another $18 million, I believe it is. In addition, we would have to reopen the environmental process for this project. So Next Era has not asked to be relocated. They're agreeable to be in our right-of-way. We've agreed, and we're moving forward. Southern California Edison has not agreed. We do have a letter from Southern California Edison stating that they will not go into our right-of-way. Regarding the relocation, we consider that a compensation issue at this time. We have made good faith effort to assess what is needed. However, the needs keep changing as more and more material is shown up on the site during the project development process. This is the first we're hearing of a request for a postponement. We have sat down with the DARs, and we will continue to sit down with the property owners to try and come to agreement. But we feel we've met all the requirements and have changed the design to accommodate as many of their requests as possible. Regarding the code enforcement, I take exception to that. I talked to Rebecca Garrett over here. We absolutely reject the thought that that Caltrans somehow went and reported a code violation. The only thing we can assume is that in our inquiries about both the property lines and about the setback, we did interact with San Bernardino County extensively to assure that our plans were right and that our final setback was correct. Let's see here, a couple of more things. The August 1st utility statement about utilities being discovered, you know, in this case, those utilities are known, but we felt that they do not impact our compensation at all, so no, they weren't included. Regarding the right-of-way lines with the buildings, it is our understanding from San Bernardino County that those buildings were not actually permitted when they were built, so that's why they were allowed, they were out there and do cross the property lines. Regarding the landlocked issue, that was brought up to us, and that was a situation created by their requesting to move that southern driveway. We did so at their request. We pointed out that their request is what caused the landlocked issue, and that it wasn't appropriate to bring forward to commission. Regarding the airstrip, I have personally seen that the airstrip was considered in the appraisal. We went out and looked at other parcels that have access to this airstrip, and it was considered in the appraisal. And we are not impacting the airstrip. Through that northern parcel, they will still have access to the airstrip that is off to the west of that project. And with that, regarding easement language, there again, we cannot, or we have not been between Southern California Edison and the property owners. We'll be happy to sit down and meet with them, but we cannot dictate what Edison can and cannot do. And with that, do you have any questions for me?
Mike, I do have a question for you. Could you please, again, reiterate, do you have a letter from Southern California Edison with you that you can show the commission that you have offered Southern California to move their poles into your right-of-way, but they said that they will not?
No, I'm afraid I don't have that letter with me.
But does the department possess that letter?
Yes, we do.
And can you produce that letter at some point?
Yes, we can. I'm sorry, I did not bring that with me today.
Because really this is what it hinges upon. I would, at this point, recommend to the commission that we believe that the department that such a letter exists and do approve the resolutions of necessity. That's staff's recommendation.
Questions of the committee, Jim?
Well, thank you for those long presentations. You three brothers look like triplets. All the stuff that was mentioned about appraisal, we can't deal with. That's not our issue. But I am a little disturbed about a coordinated meeting that probably didn't take place between the property owners, Caltrans, and Southern California Edison. And I would then probably support a continuance of this item until the three parties sit down in a room together and discuss those issues.
Carl, Yvonne?
I would agree with Commissioner Gilmetti's recommendation, and these are never easy for anyone. We have such wonderful professional staff at Caltrans and greatly value your work while also trying to balance the concerns and needs of property owners. This one to me sounds like a little more conversation could be of value. Separate from that, I just want to thank you and your family and your children for your service to our country as well. Again, that's separate from that, but deeply appreciated.
Yvonne?
There are a couple of things that ironed out before we could really make a decision. It was not clear to me that there was an agreement in terms of what the interest was. We talked a great deal about an easement, talked about a fee, and I think it's very important for us taking a position on a resolution to know the exact interest that's being acquired at every part of that property. The second thing that I had a question about, and maybe you can answer this first before we go forward, because I think there needs to be a number of meetings to try to work out something. Is there a description of what's to be acquired that is in the middle of an existing building? Did I hear you say that?
The fee and temporary construction easements we're seeking to acquire parallel Route 395. They do not influence the buildings at all on the antiques parcel. They do not impact it at all.
Do they coincide with the location of a structure, or is the description that's to be acquired in the middle of or inside of an existing structure? Is that true?
No, Commissioner. No, Commissioner Burke. It is not. We're just taking a frontage strip along 395. The buildings are set back. They're set back 63 feet from the property we're acquiring.
Okay. I do think that everyone needs to get very clear in terms of the descriptions of the interest as well as the locations and what is being actually acquired, because it seemed to me there was discrepancy between what was proposed by the department and what is being stated by the owners. Obviously, we can't talk about goodwill or relocation and appraisals, all of those things that courts can decide, but we have to be very specific or else the court's not going to be able to make any decision.
Jim, Franny, then.
Thank you. There's a lot of moving parts that we heard, and I'm in agreement with what I've heard from some of my fellow commissioners regarding the one issue. I guess the question that really that I want to focus on is what would be served, and I would pose this question to whichever one of the three brothers wants to answer it. You guys can figure that one out, but what would be served by continuance of this, and what are no one ever gets everything they want, but what are the key issues that need to be resolved if there's a continuance and you have the kind of conversation with Caltrans that you have asked for? Why don't you come up to the microphone, please?
I feel that we can get this relocation expenses cleared up. We can get the conversation with Edison nailed down, and it's not very difficult. We just haven't got to meet with Edison and Caltrans in the same room and get that nailed down. Personally, I wish you guys would complain more about the bad letter, the code of enforcement that we got. Why would that guy say Caltrans did it? But anyway, that's my personal pet peeve.
On the issue of the power lines, we have a addendum to that where it says the poles can't be placed to unduly burden our property. So to me, if that pole is in my way and it can go someplace where it can't be in my, or won't be in my way, I think I've got that right in our easement to do that. Now Edison, sure, they would rather be maybe on my property where they can service their thing, but they can get where they can go in there and service their lines, just like NextEra has a right to go in there and service their lines. So when they unduly burden my property, and there's a and now they might have to unduly burden my property at some point, but when there's another place for that pole to go, that erases that. So that's my complaint there.
The 1958 easement that they talk about here, my dad did, of course, talked to Edison directly and made all the arrangements before he almost gave him that easement. He didn't make a lot of money on the easement. He let him use it. He said, leave my property where I can do what I want to do with my property, which is park, to store stuff, etc. That easement is not a standard Edison easement. What Edison will give us is a standard easement because they're going through Caltrans. But when we talked to Edison, they said, sit down and talk to us. We'll figure out a way to get that done. And we've told them we will figure out a way to get this done. But Edison and Caltrans have some kind of an agreement with Caltrans that they can take this easement.
Okay, we got to clean this up.
Okay.
That's it. We're done. Franny and Lucy, and then we'll,
I have a question. It says in the write-up that we're at risk of losing some federal funds, so I guess this question might be for you, John. Is that the case, and what's the specific timing?
Well, you'll be hearing a supplemental request later in the meeting, but this is a critical transportation project that we need to get constructed. It's a bottleneck. As was mentioned earlier, 60% trucks. We had fatalities out there as recent as July on the stretch of highway. The issues that are being brought up today have been discussed with the property owners. If you look at the slide, it said 26 face-to-face meetings, and that's just with our right-of-way staff and the property owners. That does not include all of the face-to-face meetings that took place with some of the other divisions within the department, including design and project management. So I think there's been a huge number of meetings face-to-face, as well as email and telephone that have discussed all of the issues that have been presented to you. We have been working with SCE. We've been working with Nextera. We've been working with the property owners. We have not had a face-to-face since the second level review because we have been having difficulties with getting that meeting set up between the property owner and with SCE. But I will make a commitment right here today that I will be personally involved and I will make sure that that meeting takes place and that we continue the dialogue. If we get this resolution of necessity passed today, it's a crucial step in the process that we need to get addressed and we need to get completed so that we can get this project constructed.
Lucy.
And to that point, so just to be clear, I also am prepared to support a motion for a continuance to the next meeting at CTC. Is there any reason why that next, 35, 45 days, whatever, we couldn't just delay that resolution necessity? I'd love to see the letter from Edison. I think that the presentation by Caltrans is very compelling to me, but if there's a 30-day or a 45-day time, when is our next meeting, Susan?
October 18th, 19th in Modesto.
So is there something that is pending right now that has to get done?
Yes, this is a CMGC project, so it's one of our pilot projects. We've been negotiating heavily with the contractor, and we have finally reached an agreement on price. That price is dependent upon this resolution and the supplemental getting approved at this meeting. So there's a potential that that price could be modified if we get any level of delay. It'll also impact this project schedule, which would impact, of course, the project price, and that's the reason for it.
John, how many meetings did you personally attend with the property owners?
One. That was the second level.
How long ago was that?
That was in June, early June.
Did any of these Southern California Edison issues come up?
Yes.
It was Southern
Yeah,
California?
and they were fully discussed. We addressed it. We offered to meet with Southern California Edison and the property owner to get it addressed.
Well, it sounds like we can get this one issue resolved. You're probably going to pacify my fellow commissioners, and that's Southern California Edison. I'm not going to deal with compensation. We don't do any of that, so that's something different. But if you can get that resolved, I think you're over the hump.
Well, like I said, I will make a commitment to be personally involved in that.
I'm inclined to move forward on this today, but I'm also, having heard the concerns of the property owners, what is the harm on this delay? I understand that you're committed to a meeting if we were to support the resolution of necessity today, but what if we didn't? Will you still do these meetings? Will you be able to come back?
Absolutely.
All right, well then if it's the commission's wishes, move to delay this into the October meeting.
Well, if we do delay, it's coming back to the October meeting. I expect, and I'm going to tell both sides, neither one of you is gaining an advantage here.
Correct.
I want to make that perfectly clear. And when we come back in October, we better have a deal to both sides. I mean, I'm sure there's enough stuff to go all around on everybody. But I fully expect if we do this, that we're going to come back and have a decision, we're going to have a deal in October. But it's up to the commission on what they want to do. I'm just outlining the parameters of what we're going to have to deal with if you folks decide you want to postpone it. Fran?
Mr. Chair, thank you. We're here tomorrow. Is there any chance you all can reach out to Southern California Edison and do anything so everybody can win on this?
I'll make a phone call right now.
Well, I'm happy to help if we need to
Okay.
help get folks to talk. I don't know, it's just an idea, it seems to me that
Well,
maybe.
if we put this off to tomorrow, that means these folks are going to have to either go home and come back, or they're going to have to spend the night. So you either make a decision today, or you postpone it until October. I mean, that's the purview of the body. You had something?
Well, the point that was just made to me is we cannot direct SCE. So really, you know, the issue that with regard to SCE is between the property owner and SCE. We are trying our best to facilitate that conversation, but there's really an issue between the property owner and the utility company.
Well, that's what I said. Neither side gains an advantage with
Right.
a
And I think
postponement.
at the end of the day, if
And
we
there's
don't...
we have no, believe me,
Commissioner?
railroads and power companies are their own little world.
Commissioners?
We have no influence, very little influence over both. We have to fight and scratch for everything that we get.
Understood.
So if we go this route, I just want the property owners to understand, Caltrans has no leverage over Southern California Edison, nor do they have over PG&E or anybody else. Stephen, I see you waving your
Yes,
hand.
Commissioners. Could I suggest that you postpone this till the end of today so Caltrans can get the information from Southern California Edison? Right now, my understanding is that Caltrans has offered to Southern California Edison that they can locate their towers on the department's property. It's only Southern California Edison that says we will not locate our towers on the Caltrans property. So if we can get, obviously some kind of a letter exists, if we can get confirmation from Southern California Edison by the end of today, would that satisfy the commissioners?
Well, I'll tell you what. You can get the letter. Maybe you folks need to all go out in the hallway and have a little conversation here. And then we'll hold this, we'll put a little hold on this vote. And you got until about, let's see, looking at this, about 4:30 today.
Could we,
All right?
could we see the exact language they're proposing as it relates to that portion? that's
All we're going to do is put these folks out in the hallway, and hopefully they can come to a deal. And then you need to figure out, I don't know why you didn't have that letter with you, but you didn't. You need to go get that letter. You folks need to go out in the hallway, and you got until about 4:30. To come up with a deal for that, just walk in the door and wave your hands, and I'll interrupt the meeting, and we'll go from there. All right? Okay, well,
Okay,
if
thank
the
you.
property owners walk away, they just come in and tell us that they walked away, and then we'll figure it out from there. Okay, so we'll hold item 3. Item 4 is approval of the minutes.
Second?
In motion by Gilmetti, second by Dunn to approve the minutes. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Commission meeting for compensation.
So moved.
Motion by Dunn, second by Madaffer. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Executive Director report.
Yes, Commissioners, today I want to share a few of the meetings that took place since the last meeting. On August 8th, the Commissioners Inman and Commissioner Kehoe attended a meeting alongside myself and Rick Govell. The meeting was with PUC Commissioner Carla Peterman and Energy Commissioners Janaea Scott. And the purpose of the meeting was really to talk about zero-emission vehicle plans and rollout and other areas in which the transportation sector can coordinate efforts with the Public Utility Commission and the Energy Commission. The meeting was very, very good, and as an outcome of that meeting, Commission staff looks forward to working in collaboration and partnership with those two other agencies and their staff. And so I just, wanted to share that. I don't know if Commissioner Kehoe and Commissioner Inman have anything to add, or no? You don't have to.
No, I mean, I just really appreciate the dialogue and the interaction, especially when we're looking at the nexus between energy and transportation. I think we need to continue to have more of those discussions and interaction, because a lot of our partners are much deeper into the expertise, and so I think it's great for us to encourage that.
Okay, all right.
Just that clearly it was an opportunity with Commissioner Scott and Commissioner Peterman and ourselves to talk over a few things, but more importantly start, I think, what will be an ongoing conversation between these agencies, and I think that will be productive and make things more efficient, so that's good.
All right. And then, Commissioners, I wanted to just let you all know that on August 3rd, the Commission did hold a Transportation Technology Forum in Sacramento. The event was also available via webcast and was intended to spotlight statewide policy implications of innovation, transportation technology, and services through a legislative perspective. Commissioners Gordino, Gilmetti, Inman, Kehoe, and Medaffer all attended, and staff greatly appreciates that and also appreciates the commissioners that helped us line up some great panel members. And with that, I've asked Deputy Director Theronson to provide just a high-level overview of some of the information that came out of that event.
Thank you, Executive Director Branson. Well, I was going to give an overview of okay, so some of the things that we covered, I really think that the commissioners could probably speak to better than I. There was some great presentations about how quickly transportation technology was going to take, may or very well likely will disrupt our current systems and the way we do things. The intention really was to try to engage legislative staff to think about this and, if possible, be more proactive than reactive to these changes as they come. There are a lot of opportunities for solutions to our transportation challenges through technology, but they will require legislation. They will require changes in both statute and regulation in order for us to really take advantage of these changes. There was a lot of discussion about how they might impact local communities, how these changes might impact the local cities and counties and local jurisdictional transportation systems, as well as the transit sector. And I think that what my experience, my understanding from feedback from legislative staff who attended were how impressed they were with how quickly this is going to come. And so with direction from the Commission, we are intending to try to hold more of these in the future. We think that this is a role that the Commission is poised to take, is to help inform the legislature of things that are coming in transportation, and this is one of those things that is coming that is going to really need to be thoughtfully implemented. And with that, I turn it back over to you.
All right, Commissioners, on August 9th, Eric Thronson, Laurie Waters, and myself met with members of the environmental justice communities in the Bay Area to understand the concerns that have been raised by the environmental justice communities related to air pollution impacts, greenhouse gas emission reduction, infrastructure disparities, lack of representation and barrier to participation, and other barriers to opportunities. This was the third meeting in a series of meetings that Commission staff has held with various EJ community stakeholders. We heard many of the same concerns from this meeting that were raised by the Bay Area representatives and the Southern California representatives. and Sacramento area individuals. Commission staff intends to work with a small group of stakeholders from across the state to bring forward to the Commission a report on our findings, as well as a menu of options for the Commission to consider implementing in order to improve outcomes from state transportation investments. So this is something we'll continue to work on. Also on August 10th, Deputy Director Eric Thronson and myself met with a group of legislative staff members from both houses that are involved in both the policy and budget committees on transportation. We discussed a number of items related to Senate Bill 1 implementation and the importance of being held accountable to the people of California, of our statewide transportation investments. In particular, legislative staff shared with us, or we all talked about at times, the bill may be written in a way that creates some difficulty in implementing amongst not only Commission staff but stakeholders, and that they are very interested in hearing from us any feedback as we move forward on how to further improve the statute as far as implementation. And they wanted to really ensure that we're all aligned. So we greatly appreciated the legislative staff for participating in their continued working with us. We appreciate that. And then I have a few staffing updates. Reza Afami, I introduced him at the last meeting, and wanted to let you know that Caltrans, so thank you to Director Dougherty, has extended the time period in which he will continue working with the Commission. Reza is an engineer, and he is greatly assisting us with the Proposition 1B workload, as well as Senate Bill 1 shop and asset management responsibilities. Commissioners Erica Butler, the Commission's administrative assistant, has received a promotion at Cal Recycle, and she is no longer with the Commission. We're actively recruiting for her replacement. That position is advertised. And then, again, thank you to Director Dougherty. He has loaned us Casey Hendren for a 3-month period to assist us in our programming and administrative responsibilities. Casey has worked for Caltrans in the budget office for many years. We're very fortunate to have Casey with us, and she is right now stepping in at a time where I was going to mention that Laura Pennybaker, we're all very happy for her, but she is slated to go out on maternity leave. And so, again, Director Dougherty, thank you very much for helping us. And then also, Christina Asuri, our Chief Deputy Director, has accepted another position, and her last day with us will be on Monday, the 21st. She has taken a position with WSP, formerly Parsons Brinkerhoff, as a design build manager assigned to the California High-Speed Rail project. We do wish her great success, and on a personal note, I want to thank Christina for everything that she has done. She is one of the hardest and most dedicated individuals I've ever worked with, so thank you, Christina, for everything. And I just want to let you all know that her position is advertised. We're actively recruiting. We also have a number of positions that the legislature and the administration provided to the Commission that are also posted for filling. And so we hope that those watching the webcast or in the room today that may have an interest in working for the Commission would apply. So, Commissioners, that concludes my report.
Okay, Commission reports. Anybody?
Just 2 quick things to share. I had the opportunity and privilege of meeting with the LA Orange County Building Trades to do a good dialogue on SB1 opportunities with them this last month. And we also in Orange County held an Orange County Forum on e-commerce effect on brick and mortar. What was particularly fascinating to me is that preliminary study results on this. The tipping point is already there when you have an Amazon Prime Day and Black Friday, where internet sales are now far increased over your typical retail brick and mortar sales, that it may be impacting our ability to deliver under promises made, promises kept lines from our sales tax measures, which is why I'm asking questions everywhere I go on how are your retail how are your sales tax measures doing for funding? So I keep that in the forefront because, again, it's another opportunity for us that, and why it's so terrific that we have this SB1 funding that can help backfill, if in fact our counties are falling behind, backfill our sales tax measures. And that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead. Nothing? Good, that's it. Very good. Brian?
Sure. Good afternoon. Malcolm's going to talk a little bit about SB1 and provide an update on what the department's working on, so I thought I might confine my remarks to a few other transportation revenue issues. Clearly happy to see the SB1 items, several of which on today's agenda to move things forward. Another very significant action the legislature took in July for transportation revenue was passing AB 398, which extends the cap and trade auction program through 2030. And under current law and current appropriations, transportation receives, we think long-term, about $800 million a year from the cap and trade program. It primarily goes to transit and rail, about $500 million a year to high-speed rail, and about $300 million a year to transit and other rail systems. And when we get to item 28 later on the agenda, we'll be able to dive in a little bit to the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, which receives both the SB1 money and the ongoing cap and trade revenue. So that's very positive for transportation as well as for greenhouse gas reductions. The last thing I wanted to mention on the revenue side was we've certainly had a lot of positive news in recent months on the Caltrain corridor in Northern California, and happy to report some progress related to a very important rail corridor in Southern California. The Burbank to Anaheim segment is going to receive some bond money soon from California, Proposition 1A. The Director of Finance just yesterday approved the funding plan for a high-speed rail to work with the Treasurer to release about $77 million of Prop 1A bond proceeds for the Rosecrans-Marquardt grade separation program, which, when completed, will complete a 15-mile triple-track segment, and that segment's used by Amtrak, Metrolink, Freight Rail today. That early investment will have significant benefits for those existing users, and in the future, high-speed rail will be on that corridor as well. So I just wanted to pass on those two very positive developments. I still think SB1's the biggest news of the year, but there's definitely a lot of other things happening too that are positive for transportation. Thank you.
Questions? Malcolm.
All right, given your executive director's update on staffing loaners from Caltrans, and we're happy to do so, I'll take Garth, Rick, and a player to be named future. No? That's not going to work? All right. I usually don't bring a PowerPoint, but I brought a PowerPoint to provide quickly an update on some of the activities that we're undertaking under SB1. I think the punchline in the end is going to be that although the revenue may not start till November and January, we are already taking significant actions to be able to deliver on the promises made under Senate Bill 1. The first thing we did was to start to do outreach and to identify all the measures that we are taking as well as you are taking, and to make sure that when we take actions because of SB1 and steps on projects funded by SB1, that we recognize that that is the case, and a logo has been identified and that has been shared. And I certainly took to heart the feedback that I've received from commissioners about doing everything we possibly can on outreach and identifying measures taken because of SB1, and we will work to do that. Our expectations is that this label would be utilized on any groundbreakings, any programming, press releases on state and local projects as an identifier of rebuilding California due to the investment that Senate Bill 1 is going to make. This is a list of the competitive programs. I don't need to spend too much time on this. You are all well involved and well aware of the efforts that the CTC has underway. The most important part of this is to get the guidelines developed and the call for projects so that we can allocate funding to projects by the end of the fiscal year, which you are well on your way. This is an opportunity for me to compliment the CTC staff and all the effort that they've put into with the workshops and gaining input to develop the guidelines on these very important programs. And as you can see, there's $850 million annually at stake in 4 very important programs. Just wanted to compliment staff on all the work going into the development of the guidelines. As a recap on just some of the programs and specifically the shop as well as the Bridge and Culverts program, this fiscal year is a ramp-up year. We do have about $370 million of additional funding capacity this fiscal year in the shop. Are under the RMRA program, and then there's also $400 million for bridges and culverts. In 18, 19, and future years, that investment from the RMRA in the shop will stabilize around $1.5 billion. The actions that we are already taking, again, the revenue is not kicked in, but we know that that revenue will be here at the end of the fiscal year. In July, we advertised and awarded 13 major maintenance projects valued at $43 million. I would not have normally put that work out this early in the year, but knowing that the second half of the year is going to be revenue heavy, we can start to accelerate some of those projects. Those projects are on the street as we speak. We also, in July, expedited the design of an additional 50 projects valued at $243 million to move forward in this fiscal year to deliver, again, so that we can start front-loading our workload in this year, knowing that additional revenue will be in the second half of the year. We are also doing service contracts. One is a striping contract to enhance the visibility not only for human-driven vehicles, but also some of the autonomous vehicles in the future. I was very surprised when we made that announcement that we were upgrading our standard on striping, how much play that got in the media. Not only are we investing in improving the visibility and the reflectivity of that, but we're also increasing that stripe standard from a 4-inch width to a 6-inch width striping. We intend to restripe all of our freeways in the state of California over the next 2 years and make a significant investment in that. Additional service contracts for improving guardrail and other activities. Again, SB1 enables us to be able to move forward with that type of work. When it comes to the SHOP program, because of the additional programming capacity that we have in this fiscal year, we have moved 12 projects valued at $432 million forward from 18-19 into 17-18. These were projects that you have already programmed, so they were already in the 2016 shop, but we have the opportunity now to move them forward from 17-18 or 18-19 into 17-18, deliver them this fiscal year because of the new funding that we have available to us. In June, also, there were 4 projects that were added to the 2016 shop that would have been in the 2018 shop, valued at $44 billion. You will have a very similar action at this meeting where you augment the 2016 shop to about $1 billion, close to $1 billion. Nearly $700 million of those projects are SB1 type projects, bridge, pavement, culvert, and ITS type projects. There's 32 projects in that list that you will add to the 2016 shop, I hope, today, so that we can start working on them. They normally would not have come to you until the 2018 shop. Again, that is because of SB1. That will not fill all the capacity that we now have in the 2016 shop. We will be back in October and probably bring another $1 billion worth of projects to you in October to add to our 2016 shop. Again, because of the opportunities that SB1 provides. We also are moving forward with an accelerated bridge freight corridor program. We have identified several major corridors that have deficiencies in their structures that also have significant freight mobility on their corridors. In May, we added 22 bridges, and prior to that, there were already existing 8 bridges in there, so that brought the total to 30 bridges. In October, we will bring another 30 bridges to that program, and we will have a 60-bridge program valued at about $2.6 billion that we'll be able to move forward on and concentrate corridors and use alternative project delivery methods to be able to accelerate that work as much as possible. Those are probably the largest programs. There are several other programs that I would like to briefly mention and bring to your attention. There's also $25 million of additional dollars for Freeway Service Patrol, and I have some specific numbers that will enable local agencies to supplement their existing Freeway Service Patrol efforts in order to address disabled vehicles, which also inhibit mobility during congested hours. We anticipate 45,000 hours of additional Freeway Service Patrol service because of this additional money. The largest expansion will be in the Bay Area and San Diego counties, and we anticipate, in addition to those hours, or to accomplish those additional hours, an additional 50 trucks added to the Freeway Service Patrol statewide. There also is a local planning grants and sustainable communities program for $25 million annually. Just as you are working on the competitive programs and the guidelines there, we are working on the guidelines for that program, and we anticipate putting out grant applications, or calling for and getting grant applications in October and awarding grants in December in that program. There are also planning grants to the tune of $20 million over 3 years, and the dates as far as the grant applications in October and awards in December is also indicated in there, and then the transit and intercity rail program of $250 million annually. We have held workshops throughout the state in LA and Sacramento to be able to go over those. Final comments are due back to the California State Transportation Agency in early October, October 5th. The final program guidelines and the call for projects is expected to go out on October 13th, with project applications due in January 12th. And then hopefully the selection of projects and presentation to the CTC in May of 2018. So that program is also moving forward very well. Other outreach programs that we are doing, we are working on partnering forums with our transportation stakeholders, local agencies, and the like, as well as working with industry. We have been in conversation with industry, as well as working with the representative organizations, Association of General Contractors, as well as the Southern California Contractors Association and Yukon, to be able to make sure that they understand the amount of workload that is coming their way, and to see whether or not between us and industry we can anticipate any challenges as far as resources, whether or not they're materials resources or labor resources. We want to make sure that the industry capacity is there to be able to deliver on all this work. And I think that that also stretches to A&E and architectural and engineering, as far as getting all the work delivered to the people of California and improving mobility. We are doing some hiring. We do not have all the resources identified that we will need for the oncoming SB1 work. That will be done in a mid-year adjustment this fiscal year, but we do have to fill the vacancies that we have now, and we do have 400 vacancies statewide in the capital program, and we are working very diligently to fill those vacancies in anticipation of having a conversation mid-year with the state legislature on a mid-year adjustment to address staffing that we need for the workload going forward. We are working very diligently on all the workload for this year and next year, but we need to feed the beginning end of that pipeline for those future years, and that would be appropriate for the projects that are being amended in at this meeting and next meeting. We need additional staff to be able to deliver on that work. I do want to talk briefly about efficiencies. There was certainly a commitment in SB1 to identify efficiencies in project delivery, and we have committed to identify $100 million worth of efficiencies. We are zeroing in on exactly what that robust list will look like, and how much savings we anticipate to garner from the different strategies that we will take. This is a high-level overview. When we have that specific list, we will bring that list to you and make that presentation and make it public, so that we can then track the savings that we will be anticipating from those different efforts. Certainly there are several opportunities to streamline project delivery. One of those being concurrently moving forward with design and environmental, as opposed to doing that consecutively. We are already taking advantage of time savings with NEPA delegation. We could explore performance specifications. There's a lot of things that we can do to streamline project delivery. Also, the use of innovative project delivery methods, and we have several examples of CMGC and design build projects where we have saved time and therefore money in instituting those projects, and we can present to you the actual savings in time and money that we have experienced on some of those projects. One of the projects, the Fresno 99 realignment project, because of the negotiation and splitting early work packages and the time savings, we think we've saved $42 million in the overall delivery of that project by using CMGC. So more to come on that. We also have already reduced our overhead in our department the last 2 years, and we think that additional steps going forward will allow us to continue to reduce our overhead, and that is a measurable performance metric, and we anticipate, as this slide indicates, that we may be able to save an additional $20 billion annually by reducing overhead. And then the overall department continues to use Lean Six Sigma to try to identify efficiencies throughout the department, and we look forward to bringing you more specifics on the efficiencies and presenting them to you here, as well as going forward and measuring those and reporting back to you on those as far as being realized. Again, I will leave you with this, the logo that we are using for SB1, as well as the website. I don't need to open up the website here, but I do think that it's a robust website, and as we award projects or accelerate projects because of SB1, we are putting them on that website and labeling them on a map. I will just mention 2 other items, and then I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. I had the opportunity in July to open up and attend a autonomous vehicle symposium in San Francisco that was a joint TRB and AUVSI, which is the Association of Unmanned Vehicles. It is becoming, that annual conference is becoming probably the most robust conversation about autonomous vehicles in the country each year, and there were 1,400 individuals at that conference in July. The other thing that happened in July at the ITS America Board of Directors, Summer Board of Directors meeting, which I serve on their Board of Directors, is they were selecting the next location for the American host location for ITS World Congress. This year it's in Montreal. Next year it is in Europe and then Asia Pacific. In 2020, they approved Los Angeles being the location for the ITS World Congress. The last time California hosted the ITS World Congress was in 2005, I believe. And they usually have 80 to 90 countries and somewhere between 10 and 14,000 participants in that. I think that that is a great opportunity for us to talk about intelligent transportation and the future of transportation in 2020 in anticipation of that same city hosting the Olympics in 2028. So with that, I will end my comments and answer any questions that you may have.
Fran?
Thank you, Malcolm. I worry a little bit with our logo and our motto that the general public, I mean, we all clearly know SB1 because most of us have some sweat equity in that, but I'm not sure the general public, Commissioner Gardino shared with us about focus group work that he has recently participated in, and the public doesn't really understand SB1 or identify with that. I clearly think the Rebuilding California people, just even if you aren't a transportation geek, I think Rebuilding California maybe. So I just worry a little bit that that logo is not going to, by itself, translate to the layman, so to speak. So I think we need to think a little bit about how we make sure that at least this SB1 becomes a meaningful moniker for them, or we just go the Rebuilding California, because I'm just afraid that the laymen don't identify with the numbers.
I think
respect for Senator Bell.
I think the opportunity exists for all of us to play up the Rebuilding California. Rebuilding California is the hashtag that we're trying to get to catch on. The goal is that we saturate the media with so much reference to SB1 that as projects are coming on board, that is a recognizable symbol. But I think until then, I think Rebuilding California is going to be something that will resonate a lot better, and we have to play up that statement as well. I would agree.
So maybe we focus group in a year or something and see, and if we have to reinforce, we can, because we really want to communicate the projects.
Sure.
I have another question for you in terms of the rural set-aside on fast lane grants. It looked to me like we got the short list, so I'll be happy to ask our buddy Vince in a minute about that. But the infrastructure, the large projects are due November 2nd. Can you talk a little bit about what you all are doing?
Well, one of the short lists on that, and the small projects, as they were calling them, and I think that was a focus on rural. We didn't get any of the small projects. I guess we're holding out for the big projects, so we'll go with that. we had previously submitted projects as fast lane projects, and we certainly are looking at that short list of projects as a priority going back in for the infra program, INFRA. We certainly want to make sure that the applications for the infra program are packaged such that they will be appealing with the new criteria that will be coming out from this administration, and I think we are working very diligently to do that. Those are not the only projects that we are looking at, but there was a longer list, a medium-sized list, and a shorter list that we were looking at, and certainly our local partners have some interest in what projects they would like to go put forward, and we want to make sure we have that conversation. Each entity is still only allowed to submit 3 applications, so local agencies as well as Caltrans will likely put projects forward, and I think we'll try to put the weight of the state and the local entity for whichever project fully behind each of the applications.
I would say we need to engage our business community partners as well, because our, batting average hasn't been so great with the first 2 rounds. So I think we have to have a full court press to make sure that California succeeds.
Thank you, Malcolm. Vincent Mamano from the corner.
I don't think I'm going to come up based on what I know Aunt Fran's going to be coming at me with. There's 50 states.
No.
I'm not sure if everybody, I know, I was just kidding.
Art Dow said
I tried
we
to
are
do
the
that with a
leading
straight face.
export.
I almost tried to do that with a straight face to you all. I couldn't do it. I tried.
You had one job.
It was it. I failed you. I failed you. And just for the record, I'll fail you again if you're keeping notes. Hey, we have hey, you made it back. I'm glad. Thank you. So we have a new deputy administrator who is now in the acting administrator role, Brandy Hendrickson. So Brandy Hendrickson had Malcolm's position in Indiana. So she's actually done different roles in the DOT, worked in the maintenance from what I understand also. So she's got a good understanding of the, how the DOTs work and how, so I think that's a very good, I think all in all, so far the Department of Transportation's really got some solid political appointees. So in Federal Highway, there's 5 political appointees, the administrator, deputy administrator, and then several what we call associate administrators. Many of you may remember David Kim started off as the associate administrator for policy. Mala Parker is now our new associate administrator for policy. So we have 2 of our appointed positions, they're called non-careers, have been appointed now. She's a former vice president for American Trucking Association. So we've got a couple of those in place. We're still waiting for 3 more. Just wanted to hit a couple of those things. The August redistribution is coming out. So last year we got, Norm, I think we got 293 million last year, which was more than 11 states getting their entire program we get in August. California requested 470 million. There's some anticipation that there's actually going to be more this year based on some other rescissions and some other things that have happened throughout the country, that there's some anticipation that we have an opportunity to get a little bit more than we did last year. At least that's a hope. The formula funds last year, about this time, I came to tell you we were number 2. Texas was number 1, if you recall that conversation. California's back to number 1 again, so we're back up again. Do you see that in the formula distribution? So California, in the formula distribution, is from the Highway Trust Fund. That's your annual apportionment that you get from the Highway Trust Fund. California is now back up to number 1, 3.8 billion, right around there. We talked about FAST Act and infra. There were thousands of projects. There were only 10 projects that got awarded. It wasn't 2,000 projects got awarded and California didn't get any. It was 10 projects got awarded and California didn't get any. But there has been a lot of information out, I think, with infra. There's new criteria, and I think that's important for everybody to recognize. Your applications that you sent in for the FAST Act, or for the fast lane grants, may or may not work for infra grants. So you need to go back, everybody who's applying for those grants needs to go back and make sure that it meets the new criteria. So there's some different, there's a lot of focus on leveraging the federal dollar in the new grant process, and looking for local funding, state funding, and looking for private funding too. So looking to leverage that. So I think that's an important piece of that. I think Fran mentioned earlier that ends on November 2nd. And that's a $1.5 billion for 2 years, so that's pretty big. Two other things we closed 2 TIFIA loans in the last month or so that was pretty huge. A lot of work went into that. I applaud Orange County, OCTA, and Riverside, both in there. 405 got a $629 million TIFIA loan, and Riverside got the I-15 got a $152 million TIFIA loan, so that's pretty big. There's a lot of opportunity there, and I think that's another good example of leveraging the federal dollars, and I think you're going to hear more and more of that, is making the federal dollar go farther. So opportunities in the grant process and those types of things are going to see, they're looking at, and you see in the criteria, who else has got skin in the game, and how are we making those dollars go farther. So lastly, in the interest of time, I cut my talking points down to 2 pages, so you're welcome. We mentioned a little bit ago on an award that Caltrans and many others received, and I wanted to share that award today. It's the 2017 Federal Highway Administration's Environmental Excellence Award. I know there's a lot of bashing that happens in transportation. You'll hear that a lot. I'm sure you guys hear it every once in a while. But I get the opportunity to see, and I know you do too, and I wish everybody got to see the effort that you all see and I get to see that goes into delivering a project. And the effort that goes into delivering just some of the smaller things and dealing with so many interested parties, and so many interested parties that actually have a say in what happens, and to try and get that effort and bring that together to collaborate and get all of them together on the same page to move forward is such a big effort. And I don't think it's acknowledged and understood what it takes to do that. So California is receiving the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge project, Pier 3 demolition project. So it's the implosion of the marine foundations. I was counting on this award. There is over 20 different groups that they had to coordinate with just to implode those foundations, those marine foundations. This award is going to the California Department of Transportation and their consultant teams, the California Transportation Commission, Federal Highway Administration. It's kind of tough, you know. We were voting, so why wouldn't we be in on it, right? Of course, way to go us. Kiewit Manson, the joint venture, and MTC and BATA. So I wanted to bring up and just specifically congratulate Stefan Galvez from the project. He's the environmental manager for the Bay Bridge project. So I wanted to invite him up to share this award with him and just give him 2 seconds of kind of what went into that effort, if you would.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Mamano, for this great honor. For me, representing the team on behalf of Caltrans, as well as the CTC and MTC, BATA, our partners on the project, and all the people that contributed to this project. We assembled an extraordinary team to do an extraordinary project. Very, very difficult, very, very complex. Not only we met the goals that we had set out to do, but we exceeded those goals. That kind of propelled us to continue to do the same thing for Piers E4 and E5 last year, which were also great examples of success. And we're going to be doing the same thing again in the next couple of weeks. So you guys keep an eye on it. We're going to be removing the next 13 piers out there. So thank you so much. The collaboration with the environmental community, with the resource and regulatory agencies at the state and federal levels, and just a great family out there that we had. That's a hard thing to do. So great for recognizing this accomplishment.
And when I told Stefan we were going to ask him to come up and speak, he said, Vince, there's 20 other people that should be standing up here with me. And I think it was a testament to the effort that you specifically put in, but so did everybody else. There was nobody sitting there saying, I did it. Everybody's saying we did it. So I want to congratulate you and the team. I know Stephen Marley was in there.
Mr. Chair, while they're taking a picture, let me also compliment Stefan and everybody that worked on this. You can imagine what kind of coordination it took before we blew something up in the San Francisco-Oakland Bay. But not only were we able to do that and accomplish all of the objectives, we were able to accelerate the demolition of the marine foundations. And as Stefan pointed out, the next two will happen this Labor Day, September 2nd and 3rd. But we will demo the remaining of them this year when the original schedule had the last of them being demolished at the end of 2018 calendar year. So we will accelerate this by 1 year because of that strategy, and we needed environmental approval to be able to do that, and we will save tens of millions of dollars by accelerating it that 1 year. So that's really why we intended on doing it, and I cannot underscore the amount of work that it took to be able to pull that off. So thank you, Stefan.
And we're going to...
Thank you.
And we're going to share the rest of the plaques with everybody else that has been involved in this, and it's 3 pages of groups that were part of this at one of the next TBPOC meetings, one of the next 1 or 2. Any questions for me? See, I ended on a high note. See you, Fran.
Wait a minute.
Do you have any pull with the Federal Rail Association? We're having a little trouble getting our SMART train started up in Sonoma and Marin.
I know people who know people. I don't know. Well, you have to get it straight. It's Federal Rail Administration, not Association.
Whatever.
That's why you're not getting anything. Just
Right.
for the record, are you sending it to the right address? I mean, where's that going? Actually, we could talk after. So I actually work a lot with Federal Rail Administration, and if there's some opportunity that I can do to help facilitate something, I'd be glad to.
Well, they need some help. We got to get the thing started. They're
I
ready
can.
to go.
I'd be glad to help facilitate.
Vince, you know there's a button here that says trap door. We can push it.
Yeah, that's new, really. Anything
Thank you
else?
very much, Mr. Romano.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Congratulations. We'll go with the regional agencies, and we'll do the reports, and then we'll take a break. So, Patricia.
Good afternoon, Chair Alvarado, Commissioners, Director Branson, Director Dougherty, and Undersecretary Annis. It's a pleasure to be reporting for you today, and I just wanted to bring up a couple areas of particular regional comment. We met yesterday and we heard a presentation on the draft local streets and roads guidelines, and regions were very supportive and pointed out that, you know, that program is one of the first waves of SB1 investment, and it's very important in terms of visibility. So it'll be important that the local agencies can succeed in accessing the resources, and that the public can easily access project information. And so coordination with Caltrans, the State Controller's Office, the League of Cities, CSAC, that's all going to be needed. And CTC staff was sharing that, yes, they are working with Caltrans to create a convenient communications portal to serve the local agencies as well as the public. Many regions also expressed their gratitude to the CTC staff. Thank you, Teresa, for the consensus building that went into the final draft 2018 STIP guidelines. The proposed guidelines are respectful of state law, and they provide clear guidance and require transparency. And very important to many regions, they preserve the flexibility of the funds, which is important to the regions because it makes STIP funds a critical tool for the regions to help fund those priority projects that are selected through the regional transportation plan process. And with so much state funding now distributed competitively, flexible funds are, you know, they're even more precious and important. They're needed for development, for match funding, and to fill in the gaps when competitive funding isn't always awarded. So we're very appreciative, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Questions? Nope. Thank you. Maura?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mara Toomey, Chair of the Rural Counties Task Force. The Rural Counties Task Force met on July 14th and discussed the following issues and concerns. In regard to the implementation of SB1, the rural counties appreciate the Commission's consideration of their concerns regarding competitive balance, flexibility, and equity, and appreciate the efforts of Commission staff to develop the program guidelines in an open and transparent manner. In regard to the STIP guidelines, the rural counties appreciate that the proposed guidelines balance state goals and objectives with regional needs and priorities, as the STIP is often the only funding available for critical transportation projects in rural communities, without which access to jobs, education, and critical services is severely limited. The rural counties support the staff recommendation to adopt the STIP guidelines as proposed. That concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you. Self-help, Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, I promise to keep my remarks under a half hour. If we could go ahead, just kidding. Self-help counties recently had a meeting August 2nd.
That trap door really exists.
Yeah, I got
have
big
the
arms,
button
I can
right
grab.
here.
So, we recently met August 2nd, had a good discussion about the guideline adoption. We've been actively participating and really appreciate not only the commission but your staff in working with us. We had some bumps, I think, initially, and I think there may be some still up the horizon, but we have a great working relationship with your staff and have really appreciated the collaborative effort in moving forward in that process. I want to address Commissioner Lucy Dunn's comments about the collection of sales tax. We have actually had one of our member agencies look at getting some additional information out of BOE on how some of that information is collected. We discussed it as a coalition about some of the projections and how those are going, and are doing some internal polling on the process for how we identify and work with some of those funding levels. So it's an issue that I think has resonated across the 24 self-help counties, and then as we have a changing economy and different events that influence that economy, I think you're seeing more and more of our leading agencies paying attention to that. So as usual, you're right on point, and I want to assure you that the self-help counties, being led by your own county, is looking at this very diligently. So it's a good point. I also would like to say that the Focus on the Future conference is coming up. We're hoping to have a robust discussion, including the commission participate with us there. It's going to be October 31st, which is Halloween in San Francisco, which can always be interesting. You don't have to wear a costume, but you get extra bonus points if you do. To save time again with regards to the STIP guideline adoption process, I just would like to say that the self-help counties does support the staff recommendation. I would just like to make a quick statement about the process. You know, the local agencies, we comply with our state policy. We work those into our regional plans and then try and leverage those funds with you. The STIP is just one part of the funding mechanism and of a holistic approach that we try to take. Transportation planning doesn't stop at a county line. It's a state plan, and they these regional plans try to address those. So we do support the staff recommendation. I know that there's been a lot of discussion about that, but we think that your staff, who really has done a great job of reaching out to folks, has done their due diligence, and we would recommend their position support that recommendation. Other than that, I would just like to say thank you for your continued partnership in meeting the needs of our state and working our way forward together. Any questions, I'd be happy to field. Thanks.
Okay, we'll take a break until 3:35.